All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Magic 40, which is the 40-day wellness journey where we're talking to 40 different beautiful, amazing people on over 40 days, and just all based on health and wellness and what a little bit about what they're bringing to the world and a little bit of their stories and what they're sharing. And today we have Niraj, who is the founder of Mind Unlocked, which is a most amazing company, but I'll get him to tell you all about that. So hi Niraj, and welcome, and so happy to have you here. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got to founding a meditation? How does somebody get to founding a meditation company or journey or idea?
Hey Maddie, so first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to share. Let's dive straight into it. So you've asked a huge question. I'll give you a short-ish answer to it. How does somebody get to forming a meditation company? I mean theoretically, it is a company. It's registered as a company, but we think of it as a movement and a community, because that's what it is. That's the real fuel there. I think the starting point is, how did meditation come into my life? The very short answer to that is that meditation and yoga were not parts of my adult life until at the age of 30, I had a stroke out of nowhere. Very serious brain injury for anyone who doesn't really know what that is. And I'm incredibly lucky to be here and do the things I'm doing. It was almost exactly 9 years ago now. And
Wow.
led me to yoga. Because my neurologist was a little bit ahead of his time and said that until I'd made a physical recovery, I was only allowed to do yoga and swimming, and I didn't have a swimming pool at home, but I could do yoga at home. So I came back to yoga because, being of Indian heritage, I had yoga in my childhood, but in my teenage years, I stopped practicing. So I came back to yoga. As soon as I'd done a session, I knew this was an amazing thing that I did for my body, but I was in a very dark place mentally. I didn't really want to be in studios, so I just did like this 5-6 part foundation course, and then I wanted to practice at home. So I started practicing at home, started looking for who can guide me online, and found some stuff that was okay. And then I stumbled upon Tara Stiles,
Yeah.
and her stuff, and I was just like, wow, this is, this philosophy is amazing, but also like this is someone who can guide me for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. So that's for a number of years, that was my practice. That was what I did. And then I recovered from the stroke. I started my first company. I was trying to do stuff in health and technology, but got nowhere with it because I didn't know what I was doing. Turned to a completely different sector, real estate, out of desperation, if I'm honest. And desperation's a powerful thing. So forward 7 years, that company is it's doing okay. It kind of pays my bills, which is where I wanted it to be. And I did some like really interesting stuff with that company. But where all of this fits in is yoga became something that I was doing 2 or 3 times a week. It became a daily practice when I started my first company, because it became a way for me to be able to switch off at night so that I could sleep well instead of having an overactive mind. So what I wanted to do was, as a non-negotiable, whether I finished working at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, I'm a bit of a night owl, 15 to 20 minutes of yoga, and I just follow one of Tara's videos, like yoga for the nighttime or things like that, and that would give me the separation between my working life and being able to sleep, because it is a great stretch out for the body, but it calms the mind down and so on. All the things that you guys all know. So where meditation came into it, through yoga, I started dabbling in meditation. Didn't really have much of a practice, but then there was a point a few years ago where like just the overwhelm and the stress got too much in terms of things that was happening work-wise and things happening in my life. So dabbling in meditation became a commitment because I couldn't sleep. So I had a couple of weeks of like really, really, really bad sleep, and anyone who's had any sort of insomnia knows how like crippling that can become. So a friend suggested, why don't you just commit to meditation? It will help you sleep. So I did, and started meditating every day, and such within a few days my sleep got better, and then it just made me start thinking, well, I didn't realize this practice alone was so powerful. So what else can I do with it? And then it became a cornerstone, right? This is where I'm getting to with this story, which is that it became a big part of my working life, makes me a better entrepreneur, makes me a more effective human being. And I started thinking about a year and a half to 2 years ago, well, hang on, like now meditation is mainstream, mindfulness is mainstream, everyone's heard of it. But why are my corporate and entrepreneur buddies not doing this when I can see such huge advantages that it's giving me in the business world and the real world, not even the spiritual world? And that's where Mind Unlocked came from. It was an answer to the question, who's going to do something to really open up these practices for folks who maybe don't want to go to a yoga studio or don't want to go to a religious center, but want to do something in the real world, because by this point, like, there were some quite big apps. Headspace has become quite a big app. So that's where it all started. It was like the answer to that question. It started off in a very modest way, which was, we'll do like 3 events and see what happens. But I took away all the barriers as I saw them, which was, okay, let's bring a really strong evidence base in. There's so much research in this area, but some of it is really flimsy. So part of it was this, sort of wellness world idea that, hey, the inverted commas science says. And I was asking a question, well, hang on a second, what does the science really say? And then so we made it evidence-based, made it super practical. So we linked it to outcomes like, how does meditation work with managing stress? How does it work with sleep, creativity, all those kind of things? And then we just treated it a bit like a boutique gym or a spin studio, where we found a central London location to do Monday night, 6:30 till 7:30. So somebody can come straight after work, but then they've still got time to do something else afterwards. And we placed guest experience and community at the very center of this thing. So this was never about, hey, we're going to teach you to meditate. That's not a word that I really identify with. It was actually, we're going to make sure you have a really great experience as a human being, and you'll probably learn something about meditation and how it relates to the modern world through our guidance. Does that all make sense?
Absolutely. I just think it's perfect. And I love the idea of making it evidence-based and really practical for people. I think if you can really break it down and people can insert it, we can insert it into our lives, then it becomes something that just becomes, something that we want to add in. And I'd love you to speak to a little bit, backtracking a little bit, but to speak about, how did you make it non-negotiable? Like, when did it become non-negotiable for you? Was it just after sensing the experience, or was it a decision where you realized, hang on a second, this is really good for me, and I know that,
Yeah, so I point back to, it went from dabbling to commitment around that period when I had the insomnia for a couple of weeks, and then it kind of fixed that. But then I started asking a question, what else can this do? It just occurred to me that I was already getting these mental benefits from yoga practice, like some of them. But then it occurred to me, actually, when I'm about to go into like a really important meeting, or I'm about to go into a negotiation that I know is going to be heated, or I just feel like overwhelmed or stressed or whatever, this is something I can do for, like, if I train my mind correctly, like 4 or 5 minutes of this can really change my state in a way that maybe it's not convenient for me to go and, sort of do a bunch of like yoga stretches. So it was this realization that this is an incredibly powerful tool that can give me some serious competitive advantage in business, and just some serious advantages in life in terms of just turning up as a better human being, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you just said is so fundamental, of just realizing we can harness that, and then it becomes just this powerful tool that does make it so clear. And I think it's fundamental, like what you said about realizing that a situation may be heated. Like, it's not that everyone that's meditating is walking around in or meditating sitting on the side of a mountain or in a cave somewhere in the Himalayas, but we're actually using it as a way to be in everyday life and run businesses and be out there and be entrepreneurs, and really, really bring forward this idea that we can change our state. We can wake up, and it can be hard at home, and we can be a bit grumpy, but we can bring, what we're doing to look after ourselves is is what we then bring to a space, and how that can have a dramatic effect on our businesses, on our lives, and our relationships. So I think that's, brilliant, and absolutely like just a perfect explanation to why you're doing that. So I think what could be really, really helpful for an audience is to break down what you spoke about. Why is meditation so important, from a perspective of being evidence-based?
Sure. So let me, I just want to touch on something you just said as well. I think a lot of business folks or entrepreneurial folks or even just people like working in stressful jobs, one of the things that they're worried about is if I start meditating, am I just going to become all peaceful and nice and like lose my edge? And it actually, like, meditation helps me sharpen my edge, and I'll explain what that means. Like, if I'm going to go into a negotiation and I know that it's potentially going to be heated because of the history of that, or because I know how it's going to be, then it doesn't mean that I'm not going to stand my ground, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to argue my points. What it means is I can stand that ground and argue those points from a place of elegance and from a place of consciousness, rather than a place of I'm letting my emotions get the better of me, and then this is not going to go a way that is good for me, or that kind of thing. So it's not to say that I never never ever get into a I'm just going to be really, really open and honest here. Like, I'm coming up to 15 years married, and I have an incredible marriage. It's not to say that I never ever get into a fight with my wife, but it's so rare now because we're both conscious, and we're both like we pick and choose those moments carefully, and it's having that ability to understand, well, hang on, what's happening here is something that neither party wants nor needs. How can we step back out of it? And that consciousness comes from, like, training the mind. So I just wanted to touch on that, and now I'm going to get into.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. So why is it so important? I mean, I think the first point is that I don't think meditation is necessarily for everybody. And the point, what I mean by that is that where it becomes really, really powerful is if you're someone who's listening, or somebody who's listening who is not dealing well with stress and anxiety, is not sleeping well, is not having problems with their focus and attention, those kind of things, like just generally not happy with their own relationship with their mind, or that's something that meditative practices can really, really effectively help with, and I'll explain how. So I don't think meditation is for everybody, but I think it can absolutely help everyone. Why is it so important? Like, the world is speeding up. The way our attention is dragged all over the place is happening in a way that it didn't 20 years ago. The pace of change is so fast in our political systems, in our nations, the way that technology is disrupting everything. And it's the way I look at it is that meditative practice is a way of doing on purpose what used to happen naturally. So what used to happen naturally is we'd have these periods of downtime and boredom where our mind would get a rest and our brain would get a rest. We'd come together as a family to eat dinner, and we wouldn't be on our screens and having pings and notifications go on and be distracted by like these very full lives that we tend to live. So those things used to happen naturally, they don't anymore. So the analogy I'll give you is, we know enough about the physical body and physical science that if we push the physical body constantly and just go, eventually that physical body is going to break down, because it's not designed to do that. And what we're starting to learn through all of the kind of research and knowledge that's coming up now is that our brains work in the same way, as if we keep on pushing it with no active recovery and not which used to happen naturally, then our minds break down as well. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the results of that with these epidemics around stress and insomnia and anxiety, which then lead to more serious neurological disorders and so on. And it's not just about meditation. It's also about movement, nutrition, physical recovery. But what we do with our brains is part of that equation as well. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So where we're focusing our time, and I love the way you speak to like the distractions of technology and how that's changing our day to day, and how we can actually, by just meditating for a few moments, again, it's not for everyone, but for who is suffering
Yeah.
the time that we're living in, it can be really great.
Absolutely help everybody. And sorry to cut you off, but that's it is a point. One other thing I thought of, which I'll just say very quickly, it's now very proven and accepted that the way we use our brain changes our brain physically. It's not about positive thinking and that kind of thing. It's actually that if we direct our brains in a certain way, it's a concept called neuroplasticity, then the brain will react, the gray matter will build. So a great example of that is that in the days before Uber, London taxi drivers used to have to do a test called the knowledge, which involved learning all about London's crazy streets, and we don't have like logical grid systems or anything like that. And what they found was that the part of the brain which deals with memory was a lot thicker and more active in London taxi drivers than other folks, because they had to remember so much. And there's so many examples like that, but the basic meta is this: if we start learning how to play piano, then our brain starts getting better at remembering how to play piano, and those neural pathways become more and more efficient. So then suddenly we can move to chords or whatever. Driving a car is a good analogy, where if it's complicated at first, but then it gets to the point where our neural network is so developed around that we can start texting and drinking coffee and all these other things we shouldn't be doing when driving. So if we practice piano, we get great at piano. If we practice at the process of playing piano, if we practice driving, we get great at the process of driving a car. If we practice worry over and over again, we get better at the practice of worry. And we all know someone who can access worry incredibly easily, and it's because they're very well practiced in it and their brain has developed to let them access it. It goes back to, beyond the scope of what we're talking about here, but it goes back to basic survival mechanisms where our brain will react to what it thinks we need more of.
Right. So this is also amazing. I would sit here and just listen for hours and hours and hours. It's really, really special. So I know there's questions coming up already I can feel audience questions coming up, and people listening that are tuning in and thinking, hang on a second, I am feeling really stressed, and I am a little bit sleep deprived, and I am wondering how to unlock that pattern of stress or of overwhelm or of sleep deprivation. What would you say to them? What would be your tips to starting a meditation practice for someone who's never done this before, who's never meditated before?
I would say that the beauty is that if they're listening to this podcast, then they have access to technology, and there's some really good apps out there now. Like not everybody is a fan of using technology to meditate, but actually I think some of these guys do a really good job. So I'm just going to name check a few. I have no affiliation to any of these.
Great.
So like Headspace was the pioneer. It's a single voice, single lineage. So the flavor either will or won't be for you, but it's helped millions of people come to the practice. So they have, all of these things have free trials. Calm is a really good one. These are both British businesses that have gone global. So Headspace, Calm, and then the one that I like the best is Insight Timer. And the reason I like it is because there's like lots and lots of content from different meditation teachers. So, if you have a little play around on that, you'll probably find someone's voice that you like. And I'd say that's a really good starting point. And then the other one is have a little search around your local area and see if there's some meditation like sessions going on, and like maybe go along to one or two of those if that's convenient. But that's going to be very hit or miss because there's so many different styles and different qualities of teaching and different qualities of experience. But if somebody's like really recommending somebody, or if there's something that looks good, it's a bit like exercise, it's a bit like sports. Like there's so many different types of meditative practice that the word meditation is like sports or exercise. So if you don't like one sport, try another. If you don't like one type of meditation, try another, and just find something you like. And then in a more general sense, I think it's so critically important that we're all building activities into our week where we can be away from technology and do something creative or do something a bit passive, but not we're not talking about watching TV with a bottle of wine, because from a physiological point of view that's not beneficial. which I can kind of go into, but that's not the same thing as like proper recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, I feel like we've got so much from this this conversation. It's so great. And I know you guys are looking at bringing out online courses, but for people that that really, really like your approach and like this idea of it being evidence-based and really, really practical, how can they, we spoke a little bit before, but the best place to do is follow your Instagram, right? How can they follow you and just find out what you guys are up to and hear a little bit more about Mind Unlocked?
Sure. So the Mind Unlocked Instagram handle is mind.unlocked, which is unlock ed. So mind.unlocked. And then that's where we're not super active on there, but like we will definitely announce things as and when. You can go to our website and register if you kind of want to be kept up to date with what we're up to, which is mindunlocked, all one word, .co. And then if you want to follow me personally, I talk about all sorts of stuff related to entrepreneurship, well-being, and technology. Then it's Niraj Shah, but it's NIRAJ5HAH, and I'm sure you can like share these links, right?
Yeah, brilliant. We'll add the links below the podcast or in the comments where we can find places to add them. Well, fantastic. Unfortunately, our 18 minutes is up. Although I feel like we could have lots of more possible conversations about all these beautiful things. So we'll be looking forward to following you both on those Instagram channels and checking out the website to see all the most amazing things that you guys are up to. So thank you so much for that. And I look forward to catching up really soon and connecting really soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Maddie. Bye.
Thank you, Niraj.